I know how to see a whack MC when he bustin', but I just back away real cool, no fussin'. I'd rather go kicking in the streets with the bums and use the knowledge to collect what? Some funds. Open a non-profit and build a damn school. And this is the story of how a great king rules. There's many that claim to know the local demographic, but don't have the nerve to tell you the truth. It's tragic, but I do, so sit back and let me spit this shit to you. You feel better when I spit this shit to you. Despite the system trying to clamp down on the people will learn how to stand up to evil. Not evil that's across the globe, that's too far, but evil that lies in their own backyard. And fighting, it's not an option, they can't win. The government, it's not supposed to represent sin, but then again they do, and that's a problem. So let's go down and figure out how to solve them. It's not fun being a rapper that can't speak, but we do, yes, and plus we make fat beats. Yo, we smoke weed, break up trees, listen, bringing fat beats, that is our mission. You wanted to see us, homeboy, shut up and listen. Thelonious and Big Bennett, brother, check the vision. Mentalities of different realities. Enter the Star Trek room when you hear the boom. I be the Walkman with the super bass. Automatic stop, yes, stereo cassette player. With the delayer, freaky lyrical sprayer. Extraterrestrial rhyme sayer. I be the poetical VIC/master of the ceremony. Testimony, won't you come step with me? I'm on a historical journey, kinda like Sigourney. Implore me to represent the attorney that represents my niggas, go figure. It's the card, they call me Uncle Bigger. Niggas love your blunts, down your liquors. I read the parallel to the fiction. You're fixated on this brother's nature. Relaxed behavior, I might save your change. Flip it, rearrange the whole concept. Yo, it's good for all your brain. Insane, psychotic, neurotic, black onyx, and hooked on phonics, just atomic. Bees like a bonnet, cut with the Asiatic, they all up on it. Rhyme static with the bombastic type of skill. You wonder, is this nigga Vic really for real? It's still, but only necessary in the berry. I'm milk like dairy, they quite contrary. That's scary, but I'm a dog in a prairie. I scurry to grab my bones and just bury. Lyrical flurry, go get your secretary with impeccable dictions. My style might vary, so get a hold of your own shit real fast. Fucking with us, we take it right out your ass. Prairie dogs chill while the other dogs howl. Too many dogs get sent to the pound. Back on the hill, me and my peeps just lounge. Prairie dogs, we keep it on the down. Splatter, don't like gun splatter. We try to climb the ladder, wicked men get better. They make it like splatter, but it really don't matter. Cause you know we coming back to our sons and our daughters. So follow him, the one who protects ya. And the mother, she will never neglect ya. Through divine nature, the people respect ya. And in this way I deliver my lecture. want more. Crime babies looking for food, starvation, the recipe, people subdued. When the people you trust got it in for you. Deceit is the word of the day and every clue. Don't let it go, it's from the days of old. Time is up, but some still do not know. Can I make up my mind? Is it worth the dime? Do I have to take a minute just to make it mine? Life's never fair, but don't listen to the TV. Go out and take a listen to the streets. with the people in the slums and the homeless bums, with degrees and degrees sitting under a tree. It's not easy in the world for the poor man, the one that brought you to reality. See, they don't want you to know about the black sheep, leaving 7 rows to the 12 families all around the globe with an ancient code. Is it really asking a lot to say that's old? Cause we sitting on the earth looking back at extinct, and I'm standing on some ground that's about to sink. I ain't scared for a minute to blink. Yo, check it out, y'all. It is Saturday, February the 14th. Yo, and you know something? This year has 3 Friday the 13th. I didn't even realize that yesterday. It was Friday the 13th yesterday. I'm glad to see everybody woke up today. You know what I mean? It was good luck for some of us, right? It was good luck, and I hope everybody had a good end of their week. You know, if your work week ended yesterday, and those of you that are having your weekend right now, like myself, I hope you're having a good start to your weekend. And those of you that are on the grind still, have a healthy grind until you get those days free, you know. And but right now it's 09:49 Central European time. That makes it 03:49 Eastern Standard Time America, and that makes it about between 12 and 1:49 Pacific time, right? And for what is it? I guess that would be East Africa. That would be 10:49 a.m. And on in the Middle East, that would be 11, and on in Asia, it would be towards the evening coming up in Asia. So big up to everybody, no matter where you're at. If you're tuning in, I appreciate you so much. Now, what I do here is I do news correspondence, you could say, or I do my breakdowns on news events and global affairs, economics, politics, and but I focus pretty much on where I am. I'm in the western part of the world. I'm in Central Europe, Denmark per se, and but I'm an American citizen, born and raised. And so so I tend to focus in that realm where my family's being affected, where my family is centralized most. But then there's others, and we affect other parts of the world as well. So that conversation comes up as well. And it's necessary. It's necessary because we're all in a chain of events, you know, constantly. So I think the more of us to get down with that program, the more of us, the better off we will be. You know what I mean? Far too often, a lot of us, and I'm not saying any particular us, I just mean a lot of us human beings can tend to be very pessimistic about life, pessimistic about politics, and therefore not really engage the politics. And my argument would be, hey, you're going to engage whether you like it or not. The issue is going to be, is the sword pointed at you or is it pointed somewhere else? I mean, the only difference is somebody else getting the lion's share of their tax dollars, or are you also getting some of that tax dollars that you pay? Because if you're paying taxes and you're working, you're participating, even if you don't vote, whether you know it or not, you're still participating. Voting is about where those tax dollars that you give up every hour you go to work, voting is about where that's going to be spent, whether it's with you and people in your community, whether you're heard or not, or whether it's going to go somewhere else. So my thoughts would be participate in that. But nonetheless, we're in a globe, and as we heard, Munich happened. You know, things didn't just happen in the U.S. yesterday, and things didn't just happen in Denmark yesterday. Shit, Munich happened, and you will see, for some reason, we have U.S. representatives over there in Munich, right? You see. So even though Trump has this hostile view of Europe, or I could say belittling view, like, you know, Europe is not strong, you know, Europe doesn't do its fair share, you know, Europe is all wrong with the culture, they got the culture all wrong. This is literally what the Trump administrative persons have said when they visited Europe. You know, they try to say the culture is wrong. I mean, who the fuck are you as an American to try to tell Europeans that you got your culture wrong? First of all, Europeans have universal health care. Europeans have universal education. They got that right. You don't have those things. OK, you got homeless people in America in vast numbers. You have a population of people that largely hate you.
How could you talk about somebody else? I mean, at least get your own shit straight, United States of America, before you lecture others, particularly people that have universal health care and universal education. I mean, duh, let's get it straight. Let's get it straight. Those things matter. Those things matter. Whether you have everybody active in school and in education matters. If whether someone falls out on the street and can get into a hospital, that literally matters when you're talking about societies. If you ain't talking about society and you're just talking about yourself, then it doesn't matter. Fuck it. Don't vote. Don't vote if you're only talking about yourself. Don't vote at all. You see what I mean? But, some parts of the world have figured out how to do it, even though they have problems. And other parts of the world haven't figured out how to do nothing when they have some problems. You know what I mean? And that's just what it is. So having said that, we have this climate in the U.S. that has produced this stuff, people that are unhappy. People that are unhappy. MAGA was extremely unhappy with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Like, they were more unhappy with these two people than any other outside of Obama, than any other presidency in the history of the country. Kamala and Biden were so bad to MAGA. So bad that they went out and they voted for this new president, Trump, the guy whose best friend is the most prolific pedophile in the country. You know what I'm saying? A billionaire who doesn't give a fuck about the working class. I mean, what could really make a person who's part of the working class, or if not part of the working class, part of the poor, what would make them vote for someone who's a billionaire and doesn't give a shit about them? Jeffrey Epstein doesn't give a shit about the middle class and poor. Donald Trump's best friend was Jeffrey Epstein. Donald Trump's a billionaire. He doesn't give a fuck about the poor and the middle class. What would make a poor or a middle class person vote for someone like Donald Trump, who is said to be a pedophile himself? Let me think. What could do that? Bigoted tropes could do it. 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 And bigoted tropes could do it. Those 5 things could get those people to do it. And they did it. And that's why this stream is called USA Extremists and Separatists got played in class warfare. Oh, yes, you did. Because you are from the underclass. You know what I'm saying? And Donald Trump isn't. Donald Trump is not like you. Epstein is not like you. They don't care about you. Biden is more from the working class. It's way closer. But they just don't get it. You know what I'm saying? They just don't get it, So what we have here is class warfare masked in culture warfare. Of course, these people don't have any goddamn culture either. That's what I'm trying to tell you. How are you lecturing Europe and you speak English in America? Why don't you speak a language called America? Why don't you speak an American language? But they over here lecturing Europe. Why don't you speak your language? They fucking speak their own language. Hello? Danes speak Danish, Italians speak Italian, Germans speak German, motherfucking Americans speak English, and they lecturing other people on culture. They don't like the bunny rabbit dude that just played at they made this whole hoopla. We can't even start there. They made this whole hoopla about a guy singing some songs in Spanish, talking about it's American culture. You got to preserve American culture. Dumbass, don't you realize how many American artists play in South America, play in Spanish-speaking countries around the world, you stupid fucks? What about that part of the culture? What about how many of our American artists get to go around the world and perform and play in stadiums and events and all kinds of shit? What about that? Do you even stop for a second to think about what you're saying? No, because MAGA doesn't have to stop to think. All you have to do is give them one of those 5 things. Bigoted tropes, bigoted tropes, bigoted tropes. Let me see. What else is there? Oh, yeah. Bigoted tropes. And finally, but not least, bigoted tropes. And they will forget all of that. They don't even want to do any research. You see what I mean? They're willing to pay the price. They're willing to have their mama's health care stripped away from them, their daddy's house, stripped away from him because he ain't going to have a job. You know, he's not even going to be able to afford to pay the goddamn mortgage because the loans are about to go up. Because as soon as the U.S. goes into what is called recession, those banks are going to up those mortgages. They're going to call on those mortgages back. They're going to say, pay your dues right now. Pay your dues. And trust me, most middle class and poor people don't have that money to pay. And your political party affiliation will not protect you. You won't be able to go into the bank and say, I'm voting for Trump. It won't work. People already tried it. OK, it doesn't work at the hospital. It don't work at the bank. OK, it doesn't work in school. It ain't going to work. They want to know, do you have the money, honey? And if you don't, get your ass out on the street and get me my money right now. That's what they're going to say. So having said that, let's start off with the international news. This is some wild shit, but we are connected. We're all connected, and we're about to see how we're connected. This is going to be funny. It's going to be funny.
Good to see you all. I'm happy.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the show.
In Munich at this important conference. As you know, yesterday we had the defense ministers session with NATO. And
James, I see you.
There was a real shift
Eric,
in mindset.
Carlos.
As you know, we are investing more in NATO, all over NATO territory. The Europeans now, all and Canada on 2%, and we agreed, of course, in The Hague at the successful summit to reach the 5%. But what I was also seeing yesterday is this notion of Europe really stepping up, taking more of a leadership role within NATO and also taking more responsibility for its own defense. And I think this will only strengthen NATO. I'm convinced it anchors the United States even more in NATO than it was already, because it is dealing with this big irritant, which has been there for so many decades, of the Europeans spending less than the Americans, and we are now dealing with this. So this will anchor them in NATO. They are totally committed.
Now, what you have to understand is this is how you play somebody close. You know what I mean? You don't have to like Donald Trump to play him close. You know, he's there to be played close, you know, and if you read between the lines here, he's reciting Donald Trump talking points, right? But the truth of the matter is that a lot of European countries are happy to do this. They were happy. They just didn't have the political lane to do it in. And Donald Trump has given them this political lane by pointing a finger at them and saying, hey, man, you better come up. You better start producing more, spending more money on weapons, spend more of your GDP. So they didn't, you know, that's not necessarily what they want to do unless the United States is cool with that. And now Trump has said, yeah, you do that. But you see, there will be a ripple effect. Because the ripple effect is that there's countries now that haven't produced weapons or haven't had really big armies going outside of the U.S. and haven't been producing a lot of weapons since World War II. Because of the outcome of World War II, a lot of them made treaties to not do that, to not be so weaponized and militarized, right? That Donald Trump is now giving the reason for that. So to those groups, they have a lane now. And so they immediately started investing in weapons. I mean, they're not investing in weapons the way Trump may have expected. Trump may have said, hey, buy weapons from us. They said, no, we will buy some, but we will invest even more in our own weapons capacity. That's completely different. Jazzy music. Yeah, that's completely different. So this is a sector, a new lane that has opened up security. Not only that, check this out. Check this out. Sorry. Not only that, on the security front, security doesn't just mean weapons. It means sovereignty. It means moving away from American financial institutions, like all those financial institutions you use, Visa, MasterCard, all those things when you purchase, right? Guess what? A huge amount of Europeans actually use those American services every single day. Well, they no longer, because of Donald Trump, see that as security. They see that as a problem, too. So now what are they doing? They're embarking on creating their own, right? And the initial effect will be from start. Remember, Europe has 450 million people. The U.S. has 350 million. From the start, that will be a migration, an exodus of users out of the United States capital, out of the United States GDP over into the EU GDP. Is that what Trump expected? cloud services. There will be an exodus of that service, also of Europeans leaving the United States cloud services to create their own in the EU because of sovereignty and security issues. Did Trump expect that? So listen, we went over this yesterday in the private stream, by the way, those of you all that are members, right? We outlined the companies that are part of this migration, that are part of this change. American companies are about to get hit. Donald Trump has thrown a dagger at American companies, and we're talking about giants. He's thrown a dagger, Microsoft. You know how many governments have been and schools in Europe have been using Microsoft? Donald Trump threw a dagger in that. He threw a dagger in those. It's also in cybersecurity. Donald Trump threw a dagger in American cybersecurity companies. Yes, he did. And all that money is about to exodus outside of the U.S. And they don't have to say, hey, everybody, it's a fire. Run for your life. We're leaving. They're not going to say that. They're going to say it nice and calmly and coolly, just like I told everybody to go down, buy your guns, get your registration in a calm, cool, and orderly fashion, because Donald Trump and these ICE are on the crazy side. I said do it calmly, like this.
NATO, and also taking more responsibility for its own defense. And I think this will only strengthen NATO. I'm convinced it anchors the United States even more in NATO than it was already, because it is dealing with this big irritant which has been there for so many decades, of the Europeans spending less than the Americans. And we are now dealing with this. So this will anchor them in NATO. They are totally committed. Also,
talk about gaslighting. They're learning a little something about gaslighting, about Pam Bondi, about Pete Hegseth, about, all Mark Rubio, about Trump, how they gaslight everybody. They're going to learn. They're going to learn. You know what I'm saying? They're going to learn. Watch.
So again yesterday.
And you're right, James. If people drop their dollar standard, the U.S. is screwed. And when the U.S. goes into recession, that's exactly what they're going to do. I mean, you could see it now. What is the price of gold? I mean, look, the financial reports are scheduled this whole weekend. They were released yesterday. This whole weekend, analysts from around the world are going to be analyzing those reports. And I took a brief look at some of the reporting on it. That shit is funny. These are funny reports they're releasing. Nobody's going to buy this shit. These reports that they were delayed 2 weeks under the Trump administration, right? That happened last year too. Nobody, the last quarter, the same thing happened. And those reports, now they know those reports from last year that Trump released were bogus. And the same thing's going to happen with these new reports. They're trying to make the news sound better than what it is. Man, they're going to chew these reports apart this weekend. And that could very well lead to recession, straight up. So people, you had about a year to prepare under Trump for the bad news. People that invested in gold when Trump had day one got a good payoff, got 3 times their money, right? Thus far, almost 4 times. Some of y'all got 4 times, because if you cashed out a week and a half ago, you would have had 4 times the amount. But it pulled back because those reports were delayed pretty much. But it's coming again. So if I was you, it depends on how much money you have and how you do your investing. I don't have a lot, so I'm always trying to make the maximum amount with the smallest amount I invest. But gold might be an option and other things too. But if you already have gold, my advice would be keep it, because it's bound to go up some more. That would be my advice. Now, but let's listen some more here. Let's see here.
Both nuclear and conventional to the alliance, and I think that is very important. Of course, we'll also discuss Ukraine. It was discussed yesterday. It will be discussed today. One, good news. More money coming in to support Ukraine.
What's up?
But we still need more. Particularly, we need interceptors. We need the ammunition to make sure Ukraine can stay strong in the fight. And what I will also be doing today and tomorrow is make clear that the Russians are not winning this, as some are thinking. This so-called Russian beer is not there. Het is basically a stilted speed of a garden snail what we are seeing in Ukraine. This is how the Russians are moving inside Ukraine. Very slow, staggering losses. Tens of thousands a month, 35,000 dead in December, 30,000 dead in January. So these are the facts. And therefore we have to keep Ukraine strong, because what we see is that they make the best use of our support.
Edward.
So with that, Do you have any questions? I think you have.
Yes, I have, Mr. Thank you very much. ISIS is still trade for the world and for Europe. ISIS is trade for the world and for the European. Will you continue working with the Peshmerga and the Syrian democratic process?
That's not on my agenda.
That's very
It's not on my agenda today or tomorrow.
What do you expect from the Secretary, U.S. Secretary Rubio, from his speech?
Mark Rubio is a good friend, and he will no doubt continue pressing Europeans to.
You hear that? It's called playing himself. Playing them closely. You hear that Mark Rubio question? You hear that? Of course. This is what I'm saying. I mean, the read between the lines. Obviously, nobody gives a shit about Mark Rubio. I mean,
The Secretary.
Listen to this. This is so funny.
That's not on my agenda. It's not on my agenda today or tomorrow.
What do you expect from the Secretary, U.S. Secretary Rubio, from his speech?
Mark Rubio is a good friend, and
sure, Mark Rubio's a good friend.
he will no doubt continue pressing Europeans to keep on taking more of a leadership role in NATO, make it more European-led.
Somebody said, I don't care about that war here in America. We are fighting just for equality. Yeah, well, guess what, man? I mean, you could do both at the same time, but Trump's not trying to do either. Don't you think that's ironic? I mean, Trump is abandoning people in the U.S. at the same time he's abandoning Ukraine. So the question is, if you really do the math, could both have been achieved by a good administration? I would argue American people should definitely believe easily both could have been achieved. But there's reasons why it's not. You got a Supreme Court that is highly corrupted. Obviously, people are beginning to see that now, but it has been corrupted for some time. They shot down a lot of social issues, social economic issues in the U.S., like student debt relief. They shot that down. Minority farmers relief. They shot that down. That's, when that money goes out to the farmers all the time because there's emergency situations, it goes to the states and the states are supposed to distribute it. Well, then a lot of the states were discriminating against minority farmers and weren't giving them any of that money. So a law was made. It passed through Congress. It passed through the Senate. Then it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said you can't do reparative justice in the United States of America. That's what they did. So I would argue that instead of being against something, it's more important to be for something. And the American people didn't vote for reparative justice in the United States, not for poor people. I'm not even talking about white people or black people. They didn't vote for poor people and middle class Americans. They didn't vote for the people that's pumping out the babies. They didn't vote for child care. You see, they voted for hatred. They voted for a billionaire who hates people, who's a classist. That's what they did. So let's get it together, folks. I mean, anytime you have a fellowship, in Danish is called fellowship. What is it called? In English, the word is like anytime you have a union or anytime you have a group that is composed of different people, you need each other. You're not all going to have the same, always only the same issues. Some of you might have a few special issues. That doesn't mean you have to abandon those people. They're still on your side. They're still going to vote together with you for those things you want. Stand together. Don't let them fool you. The U.S. has the biggest GDP on earth. You see what I'm saying? Don't let them fool you. The question was never the money. The question is, why are we funneling money to the rich and keeping it out of the middle class and the poor's hands when they're the ones that's going to spend their money? They're the ones. That's where the economy is going to be bolstered up. When poor and middle class people have their dollars to spend in their communities, that's going to repair the communities. You see what I'm saying? But what they've done is found a way to funnel it to people like Elon Musk that don't need any more money, ain't going to spend their money. They don't need it at all. They're not even going to spend it. They're going to send it somewhere else to sit in a bank that's not even in the United States of America. Guy got 3 passports, 3 citizenships, and you're funneling your tax dollars to him. Peter Thiel got 3 citizenships. He don't need any more money, and you're worried about funneling it. You're more consumed with funneling money to them than you are to your own communities. That's why you don't have health care, because that's what you're doing. That's why education is not accessible in the United States, because that is what you're consumed in doing with your mindset, with your mind state, with your version of politics. So again, trust me when I say this, stop thinking about what you don't want or what you're against and focus on what you're for. Because even though you might be against something, those people might be for you getting what you want to, and you might need their support. See how that works? Guess who didn't get the support this time around? Poor in the middle class, Ukraine. What a coincidence. Okay.
And therefore also...
I mean, Palestinians definitely they definitely didn't get any help. They got a worse situation from one regime that wasn't strict enough against Israel to a one that said, do whatever you want with them. Be damned.
Making clear, it's my expectation that it will only help for the US to be even more anchored inside NATO. But of course, I'm not writing a speech, but I've every confidence in this speech.
Do you think that Europe can be independent from the United States? And yes, when?
Now, remember, this is a play you closely question. This is how this guy answers. It's play close, because, of course, why wouldn't you do that? That's smart politics. You know, you don't have to be like Trump, always talking down to people or always talking about your troubles. You could talk about what unites you, too. You could talk about what you have in common and still move towards your goals of security quietly, you know?
Listen, I think we all agree in NATO that we should stick together. The US and European and Canadian NATO. I think we all agree on that. But having said that, we also all agree that NATO should be more European-led. Europeans should take more responsibility for their own defense. And the good news is they are doing. There's the extra defense spending. We are seeing, for example, Germany doubling its defense spending 2021 compared to 2029. They will go to over 150 billion. A clear example of Europe stepping up. The Germans are increasing their presence in Lithuania. Again, Europe stepping up. Pearl, Europeans and Canadians buying from the US essential gear for Ukraine. Europeans stepping up. So we will stick together with a United States anchored more than ever inside NATO, because they know that what they have asked for decades, Europeans and Canada taking more care of the collective defense, particularly spending the same at least as they are spending, is now happening. Not only because the US is asking for it, but also because we need it because of the Russian threat.
General Bridge Colby said that Europe needs to take primary responsibility for its own conventional defense.
You know, one dynamic that existed in Europe is that the European voters, you got to remember, these are democracies, just like in the U.S. They may be more democratic than the U.S., to be honest with you. Not maybe, are. Europe is more democratic than the U.S. One dynamic to this in the investment in weapons and things like this has been that the voters typically in Europe were not for this. You see, European voters typically have not been into foreign wars. They haven't really been. You have to kind of drag them into it because they don't want to be caught and stuck in wars. You see what I mean? So actually, a lot of the politicians, they know that. You see what I mean? So they, you have a few that have been successful in doing that, but in other countries, they lost that battle. You might lose your job as a politician pushing too hard. So this dynamic with Trump has changed that, because Trump is a better example than any European politician that was pushing for weapons manufacturing or pushing for bolstering up its military, right, and being involved in wars. Trump was a better speaker for them than they could have ever been to themselves, because Trump literally threatened their survival, you know what I'm saying, on all levels and shit. And now they're just like, okay, well, now we see what the point is. We have to bolster up our defenses. And just think about this. The EU is 450 million people. Certain parts of the EU, the biggest economy, I think where the economy is thriving the most, the strongest, may be like in 130 million EU citizens, right? Alone, that's just half of them are very, very strong off, right? Now, the U.S. has 350 million, but it doesn't change the fact that the EU is circulating around 450 million people. So the reality is that they do have the ability to bolster up if they want to, So the question is, who's going to like what that looks like? That's the only question. But Let's go
How
ahead.
quickly does that need to happen? How long does Europe have?
What I'm seeing at the moment is NATO more and more European-led.
You know, there was a change. There was an exchange. U.S. was dealing with weapons more than Europe. Europe was using American financial institutions more than Americans were using European financial institutions. That's really where the exchange was going on. Europeans were using more security services from the United States, cloud, financial, transaction institutions. Americans weren't using European cloud services. They weren't using European financial institutions. So really Trump didn't explain the economy well, but the U.S. was getting a lot from this relationship. Now it's kind of been a reset button, so we have to see how that pans out. But in any case, let me hear some more of this.
And the Europeans really stepping up to take care of their own defense, but with a strong U.S. presence going forward, both nuclear and conventional. And we have all the plans in place, as you know, to make sure over the coming years, with the huge investments now taking place, as I said, the Germans doubling their defense spending, the new Dutch government committing to reach as fast as possible the 5%, including the 3.5% core defense spending. What is happening in Poland? Well, I could mention all the allies, Canada back, really stepping up. So we will, over the coming years, get more and more, we will more and more see a NATO more European-led, but at the same time, the US absolutely anchored in the organization.
Target date or a deadline?
We will do this step by step in close conjunction with the United States based on the defense planning process.
But, don't get me wrong. Who was that? Raymond. I understand the point, though, because, listen, I think you speaking for the frustrations that a lot of Americans have. A lot of Americans are frustrated with their government not doing anything for the American people with the American people's tax dollars. I think that's what Raymond is kind of getting at. And that's true. That you can't you can't dispute that. And I think American citizens have every right to demand that its government fucking does something that other Western governments does for its own people. Every other government in the United States, in Europe, they're able to do two things at once. They're able to work on healthcare. Healthcare is a big project in Europe. It's a big, so the government's involvement is there to make sure that it functions well, not to stop it from, being thriving. You see what I mean? It's there to make sure it functions well. And if you're going to take tax dollars from the citizens, right, and put it into that, it needs to be able to cover citizens. The United States doesn't have that kind of tax game going on. You pay 28% of the federal dollars of the federal budget goes to healthcare. Did you know that? How many American citizens know 28% of the taxes you pay goes to healthcare already? It just doesn't cover everyone because on the back end, they want you to pay these huge deductibles. They want you to pay these monthly fees when you're already paying taxes that go to it. So poor and middle class Americans are subsidizing through taxes other people's health care while they can't even access it. That's what's really going on in the United States of America. And people have every right to be pissed off about that. Let alone other issues. So I'm totally for that. I think if you can't do it home, why are you trying to do abroad? Forget it. You know what I mean? And we know why we're trying to do abroad. They often call it security. But really what they're talking about is corporations' money abroad. Protecting, using the military, which is a socialist project. The United States military is 100% paid for by the taxpayers. They take the taxpayers' dollars, send those ships out there to protect corporations' money outside of the U.S. That's what's going on. That's really how the tax system is set up in the U.S. And something needs to happen about that. Something needs to happen. And yeah, so I get you on that one, Raymond. I 100% get that.
Yes, we have. Yes.
Can Putin invite one of the NATO countries?
Again.
Can Putin invite one of the NATO countries and when it can be?
Well, let me first of all say that there is a US-led peace process. I think that's crucial. And led by the American president and, of course, Marco Rubio, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner. They're doing an excellent job.
Playing them softly, you know what I'm saying? Like, playing them close. Oh my God, this guy's an expert at that shit.
This is not easy. It will take time. And what you will see, of course, first of all, they always...
I mean, he's a diplomat. This dude's a real diplomat. You know what I'm saying? He knows how to say what he wants to be happening while knowing some whole other shit is going on.
Coordinate with NATO allies. So we know what's cooking, what's happening. That's important. Of course, they work closely together with Ukrainians. And wherever helpful, you will see others participate. No doubt. But the most important thing is that whatever happens there, it is in close coordination done.
Yeah, Ruta, that's why they selected him to be the mouthpiece for for Europe, because he's a diplomat. You know what I'm saying? He's not a jackass like Trump. He's not going to come out and say, you know, he could say, you fucking Americans don't even take care of your own people. God damn, I've never seen anything like this. Get these people off the street. Get them in education. Get them in healthcare. Come on, you're the world's biggest economy. You can fucking do better, but you're a shithole. He doesn't come out and talk that way, but he's thinking it. He's thinking it.
Secretary General, please. According to the Ukrainian intelligence, Russian ballistic missile Oreshnik is already in Belarus. What NATO are planning to do with this, and will you allow Ukraine to strike this Oreshnik on the territory of Belarus?
Yeah, Trump can't even speak English anymore, man. Shit.
Again, this is the reason why I'm saying here today and tomorrow. This is my main priority. Yes, it's good news that Europeans and Canada are helping Ukraine more. But we need to do even more, because when it comes to the interceptors, to take out missiles, when it comes to the anti-drones, we need the counter-drone technology. Of course, the Ukrainians having it, but making sure they have access to a massive amount of that as possible, working with the Ukrainian defense industrial base, but also making use of all the cooperation and bilateral cooperation with NATO allies in Europe and Canada, but also making use of this essential gear coming out of the US, including, of course, Pearl, which is interceptors, and everything else we need, lethal and non-lethal, to keep Ukraine in the fight, which only the US can provide.
Yeah, you know, Eric, exactly. He's taking some serious questions. Yeah, Trump can't take these questions, yo. Trump doesn't even know what the fuck they talking about right now. He's like, interceptors, what does that do? Shit.
State for our allies and partners. So all of this is...
And he doesn't know the numbers. Trump doesn't really have an overall view of it. And Ruta does. I mean, you know, obviously he's engaged in... competent. And this is what it's supposed to sound like. I don't even want to clap it up, because it's supposed to sound like this, you know, just on a neutral level, at lukewarm, you know what I mean? Lukewarm temperature, room temperature is supposed to sound like this at the very least and shit. And Trump has just brought that whole thing down to the ground, where it's just like, you can have a leader who doesn't know anything, doesn't even care about what he's talking about. It's like... Yeah, Trump just says everything's fucking great, and it's obviously not. Now, I heard that they say OC and Gavin Newsom were in Munich. Also, there was this jackass Mark Rubio. Let's see what that sounds like.
Democratic 2028 contenders are set to address the Munich Security Conference, leveraging the world stage to elevate their standings before an audience of European leaders who are reeling from what some conference officials say is the Trump administration's wrecking ball approach to the international order. Joining us now, MS Now senior White House reporter Vaughn Pilliard, and Basil Smykel is still here with us. Vaughn, this is one of the most high-profile foreign policy events on the calendar. What's the significance of seeing these leaders there?
It's significant because almost, in effect, the opposition party in the United States is going...
Yo, Raymond, what you speaking? You writing German in the chat? What is that? I don't understand what you're writing. I only can read... English, Danish, and Swedish.
Going overseas to Europe,
Norwegian,
and speaking out as partners of transatlantic partnerships. I think this is key.
Oh, that's Dutch.
Just 3 weeks ago, when we saw California Governor Gavin Newsom head out to Davos and effectively seek to try to almost mock the appearance of Donald Trump. But the current American president's high stakes, effective distancing of U.S. coalitions and partnerships.
Yo, the Netherlands is a nice country, by the way. Yeah. I haven't been there in a couple of years, but it's fly. I got to go back there.
And the threat to take over Greenland really marked a heightened concern of European allies about the long-term relationship that they will have with the United States. That led to the Chancellor of Germany just today saying that no longer can Europe assume that America's power alone will be enough to sustain Europe's defenses. And that's where I think that seeing Gavin Newsom there, but also Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Ruben Gallego, the senator out of Arizona, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez out of New York, essentially try to fill that void left by the Trump administration in terms of its assurances of the United States' long-term consistent reliance or allegiance to alliances, I think is notable. I want to let you listen to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez there just a few moments ago in Munich.
What we are seeing over the last 8 years, I think, has been a growing recognition that of those past errors that go back, that include military interventionism in the Iraq War, that include a recognition of NAFTA as a failed policy for many rural and working class communities. And now I think we are moving in this direction of increased recognition that we have to have a working class centered politics if we are going to succeed, and also if we are going to stave off the scourges of authoritarianism.
Yo, you know what? And in terms of like what she touched on right there, she talked about what, Iraq? What was it?
Working class back. What we are seeing over the last 8 years, I think, has been a growing recognition that of those past errors that go back. Okay,
of those past errors. Okay, listen to this.
That include military interventionism in the Iraq War.
Right. Now, so there was a after 9/11, there was a choice presented. You know, Bush decided whatever concoction they came up with, they decided to go out and send the military out. That was there, and to say that they're going to fight terror. You know, this was a whole narrative. And I'm not saying that they didn't believe that or whatever, right? But that was their narrative. That was a choice to react. That was a reaction. Everyone didn't necessarily agree with that type of reaction. You know, to be honest, you could have done something else. The question of military might is always on the table when you're dealing with a country that has it. So you don't have to say it. You always have that. But what we didn't say was we didn't necessarily I didn't think that our country, that we didn't try to, lower the, what do they call it? Hostilities. We didn't present ourselves as a country that was hurt, but is not seeking revenge just against anyone. That we first want to find out what went on. And it seemed like what went on got put together rapidly, right? And as you see, at the actual truth of it, it wasn't as straightforward as they said. And actually, to be honest, a lot of people still think it wasn't even, the end of it. They didn't explain all parts. And the reason why I say this is because look at the places we sent. Okay, so we got attacked. 9/11, that was real. I'm not questioning that. That was a real attack. It was a coordinated attack. You need a lot of intelligence to do that attack. You need a lot of assistance to even do that type of attack for it to work, right? But the thing about it is that, sure, they did that attack, but where did we send our military? We sent our military back to the same old places that we compete against Russia with. Right. So what's up with that? Like, why were we back in the same old places again? And that's one question. And it also makes you wonder, like, what's the attack about? There's still a lot of questions. But in any case, when you respond, you need to know what the real cause is first. And you need to have a serious plan for how you react so that you don't just waste your time and energy. You saw our troops got pulled out of Afghanistan. So what were we there for? What was the point? You see what I mean? Now we're 20 years later. Look at the Middle East condition right now. So could we have done those things better? That's what I kind of feel like she's getting at. But in any case, having said that, there's another aspect to this. A lot of countries, Denmark, stood by the U.S. They were one of the first to take the Article 5 call that the U.S. put out during that, during the attack after 9/11. Right. But the thing is that all countries weren't necessarily okay with how the U.S. went about it. Even though people back it up, they weren't necessarily okay with how, with the game plan. They simply backed up the U.S. because it was the biggest country. They knew that the U.S. itself, could succeed in a lot of spaces that they wouldn't be able to succeed. So they basically backed up the U.S. But here's the thing. What she said about the local policy now, yeah, Europeans get that right. Domestic policy, they're getting right. Listen to what she say right here. I think she recognizes that, yeah, Europeans have universal health care. Europeans have a universal education, right?
A growing recognition that of those past errors that go back, that include military interventionism in the Iraq War, that include a recognition of NAFTA as a failed policy for many rural and working class communities. And now I think we are moving in this direction of increased recognition that we have to have a working class centered politics.
The Europe has a working class centered politics when you compare it to the U.S. Some Europeans would say it's not enough working class politics. But when you compare it to the U.S., it's a lot more, way more than what the U.S. offers its taxpayers, its citizens, its residents.
If we are going to succeed, and also if we are going to stave off the scourges of authoritarianism.
I think Europe is a better situation because Europe, in order for them to have consensus, they have to do it among many different nations. So they're not in a rush always to do things. That's the good part about it. So a lot of their politics hits the ground in Europe and gets, and there's progress in Europe on the ground versus take flight and end up somewhere else all over the planet. You see what I mean? While we're making excuses for why we can't do what we need to be doing at home. So that's very interesting that she made that statement there.
And of course, here ahead of 2028, there are still 3 years left.
Appreciate
of
that,
this
Roni.
Administration. We are still
45 Roni in the house.
Any of these individuals you could anticipate announcing their own would-be presidential bids, but this is a moment here where, especially coming out of Davos.
What the hell is he talking about? She's not saying that on a presidential bid. You hear how he kind of talked down about? Am I hearing this right? She was accurate.
If we are going to succeed, and also if we are going to stave off the scourges of authoritarianism.
No, she's speaking facts. Authoritarianism is what you're seeing in the U.S. It's anti-democratic. It's anti-people. It's anti-citizen voices. It's anti-people's voices. It's anti-people's votes. It's anti-people's input. That's what it is. And she's speaking facts because Europe understands what, they understand what authoritarianism is because they came out of World War II and had to live with it. You see what I mean? So they're focusing on democratic institutions way more, and they do recognize that in other parts of Europe, that's a challenge. Authoritarianism, anti-democratic sentiment, anti-democratic regulations. You see what I mean? So she's on point. Why this guy? It sounded to me like he was trying to say that, oh, she's just saying that because she want to run for president. No, hell no. What?
And of course, here ahead of 2028, there are still 3 years left of this administration. We are still well more than a year before any of these individuals you could anticipate announcing their own would-be presidential bids. But
you hear that? I don't get that. Yeah, that he didn't come out too hard, but it sounds to me like he's talking about Acosta. Not Acosta, but OC, right?
Moment here where, especially coming out of Davos, that there was an understanding within the Democratic Party of the need to provide assurances to European allies that there is a future in which America will be there.
Yeah, AOC, exactly. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would vote for her too, but I don't get it because, in other words, she didn't say all of that because she wants to run for office. She's saying all of that shit because that is actually what the problem is. Authoritarianism and anti-democracy. How are you going to pay taxes and you don't want a government that is adhering and listening to the voters? What's the point? And that is a serious problem in the U.S. And that's the threat. That is the threat. Otherwise, you don't have a society. You don't have a system that functions if it's not one listening to the people and acting according to the people, what the people need. You see what I mean? That's what people pay taxes for. That's the whole point.
To financially and militarily.
He's making it sound like, that's something special. It's just running. It's just a campaign promise.
And structurally support NATO and the United Nations, and that well beyond a would-be Trump administration, that some of these individuals, if they were to serve in the capacity of the White House themselves.
You hear this? This is MS and shit. What is they must have decided they're going to get some right wingers on MS.
Would be on the front lines of restoring those assurances that over the course of the last 12 months have really caused fraught tension and relationship between the United States and their longtime partners.
Vaughn Hilliard, thank you. And Basil, just how important is it for presidential or potential presidential hopefuls to carve out their foreign policy agenda now, so far ahead of 2028?
Well, in the past, I would say not so much, but now actually it's really important. And there's precedent for this. First of all, I'm glad to see AOC, who represents the Bronx, and Mia.
I think it's more about the left. I don't think it's about individuals. I think it's about, opposing Trump and what his authoritarian rule has brought. I don't think it's one Democrat or one lefty or one opponent that needs to do this. I think they all need to be talking about what needs to happen, how the U.S. needs to be reshaped. I don't think it's about who's going to run for office. It's about an overall message that, making sure that others here are hearing the American people, because the American people are going through some shit right now. This is real shit. People are really struggling right now. It's not something to just pass off as a campaign promise. It's like, yeah, this is crazy.
Out on that world stage, speaking the way she is a very proud moment. But, it is an important time, and there's precedent for this because Barack Obama during the presidential campaign went out to Germany, if I remember correctly. And part of the message was to try to unite the world after the financial collapse at a point where it seemed potentially that America was kind of going to drift away. It was a speech meant to unite. And I think that's what you're seeing Democrats do here again. At a time when President Trump said he was going to be isolationist.
Exactly.
Which you may agree or disagree with, but the belief among his supporters was that he would focus on them. He didn't do that. And he's going out across the world and destroying our alliances. So to Vaughn's point, this is about restoration. It's about restoring America's place in the world, but it's also saying that if the United States is 5% of the world's population, 85% or more of our customers are going to be elsewhere, that we have to re-establish those alliances politically, in terms of security and economically.
Facts. Exactly. Now, let me see what else happened here. Yeah, I agree more with his assessment on it. I'm not too much into Ryan's assessment. Maybe he was being a little conservative or whatever, but in any case, let's see.
The immediate reason he did was because in 2016, he organized a protest against what he thought were too many refugees being settled.
We're going to get back into the domestic after this real quick. I just wanted to see what was going on in Munich.
Northern part of Essen, his part of Essen, the poor part of Essen, where he said schools were already struggling, where affordable housing was already scarce, where food banks were already overwhelmed. He said North Essen couldn't cope. The SPD, the Social Democrats, banned the protest, so he left. The deeper reason he left, he said, was that he felt that the Social Democrats had betrayed its base, working class base, people like him. He didn't feel at home anymore. They had become the elite. And so for him, there is something going on that means that the center-right and the center-left have become practically indistinguishable. The choice is no longer left and right. The choice is kind of between the people and the elite. Germany is kind of a special case because the Social Democrats have not just mimicked center-right economic policies, they've actually governed with the center-right many times. They're in government with them now. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you are a Democrat. You are a member of the House of Representatives. Has the left betrayed the people? Has your party betrayed its base?
Yes,
Wow. That is a good question.
What's the name of the individual from your story?
Guido.
What I liked about that question is that it kind of shows Americans that these issues that folks are describing in the U.S. are similar. These issues exist in Europe, too. I mean, the issue over politics and anti-democracy, you could say, versus or authoritarianism or corruption, you could even say that, or the right-wing politic that wants to point at immigrants all the time in a way that doesn't ever describe other, how the rest of the country is functioning, the rest of the economy is functioning, the other institutions and the rest of life is functioning. So there are some parallels, so it's just that the base norm in Europe is Europeans definitely have thought about healthcare and education as being something that's positive, to addressing issues for everyone, you know what I mean? But there's still this element of right and left and then center, as you just heard. So, but let's go on.
People and the elite. Germany is kind of a special case because the Social Democrats have not just mimicked center-right economic policies, they've actually governed with the center-right many times. They're in government with them now. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you are a Democrat. You are a member of the House of Representatives. Has the left betrayed the people? Has your party betrayed its base?
What was the name of the individual from your story?
Guido.
It's funny that you asked this question because...
Is the mic working?
Is the microphone on? Okay, thank you. Thank you. It's funny that you asked this question about Guido because in many ways I relate to him. I share many aspects of his story. I was first elected when I was in 2018. And I was a waitress in New York City. I had no health insurance. I could not pay my rent. And I consistently saw a party that championed special interests, the elite, and a Democratic Party that was very much kind of telling working people that everything was fine when it in fact wasn't. And after I was elected, I remember I was crossing this threshold, and there was this closed-door meeting of many high-ranking Democratic Party officials, people that you see in the news and all of that. And they derided behind closed doors at that time, a long time ago. They derided many of the populist demands that I had run my campaign on. And I had defeated a 20-year Democratic incumbent that was part of Democratic Party leadership. And they said $15 minimum wage at that time, way too high, too severe. The idea of tuition-free public colleges and universities, too far, expanding health insurance and Medicare, too extreme. And these are all the things that I, as a waitress, had campaigned on and had been major pain points in my life. And then they said, we have to listen to working class people more. And I think that that encapsulates much of the betrayal that the working class in the United States had felt. But we have also come a long way since then, and we have a long way to go. The United States right now is experiencing a political pendulum, and depending, really, the party that is seen most as betraying the working class tends to be the governing party in this moment. Right now, that happens to be the Republican majority.
Facts.
But really, what we are seeing over the last 8 years, I think, has been a growing recognition that of those past errors that go back, that include military interventionism in the Iraq War, that include a recognition of NAFTA as a failed policy for many rural and working class communities. And now I think we are moving in this direction of increased recognition that we have to have a working class centered politics if we are going to succeed, and also if we are going to stave off the scourges of authoritarianism, which also provides political sirens, political siren calls to allure people into finding scapegoats to blame for rising economic inequality, both domestically and globally.
Check.
Okay, I'm actually glad that I pulled this clip up because this gives gave her full statement. Actually, I didn't even realize it. That's how good they are at cutting this stuff. But let's see.
Run for president.
What else?
are you going to
Okay, so this is probably why Ryan says, "Are you going to run for president?" I get it now. I see.
impose a wealth tax or a billionaire's tax?
I don't think that I don't think that anyone, and that we don't have to wait for any one president to impose a wealth tax. I think that it needs to be done expeditiously.
And interestingly, when I wrote about wealth tax recently, and of course the big argument against this is always capital flight, the US is actually uniquely placed to do it because you guys tax on the basis of citizenship, so people can't flee, you know? And even if you change your citizenship, there's basically an exit tax because you have to pay a tax on unrealized capital gains. I learned this just recently. Manfred Weber, you are the president of the European People's Party, which is a group of conservative Christian democratic parties in the European Parliament, not far-right parties, but you have recently been voting occasionally with the far-right parties, breaching the famous firewall. Do you agree with J.D. Vance, who spoke here 1 year ago and told us all that this firewall is undemocratic? And if so, do you think that your party in Germany should actually be in coalition with the AfD instead of the Social Democrats?
Well, having J.D. Vance's speech of last year in mind, I 100% disagree with what he said there. And my party, the European People's Party, is the party of Schuman, of Adenauer, of de Gasperi, of those who founded the European Union. Afterwards, people like Václav Havel, of also Walesa from Poland, you know. So after the reunification, that is in a way the heritage of us as European People's Party. And to mention AfD in Germany, to mention nationalists in other countries, you know, that is totally the opposite what we stand for. My party, my predecessor as EPP party president is Donald Tusk in Poland, you know. He's fighting hard every day against Kaczynski, against Konfederacja, there to keep Poland in Europe and to be part of this European family. So that's our DNA. There's a clear red line. And I personally have defined it. For us, there is no cooperation possible with parties who do not follow the three pros, so pro-Europe, pro-Ukraine, pro-rule of law. Three key basic aspects which defines our DNA as EPP. But let me also be very clear when it is about the fight against populism. You mentioned a voice expressing the disappointment, the frustration, the concerns, the fears of citizens of this European Union. The basic thing is to win against populism is to give proper answer on their concerns and to take it serious. And this week in the European Parliament we voted on a safe third country concept. So to make our external borders against illegal migration, against the fight against the mafia there in the Mediterranean Sea, to make our borders to protect them. And the socialists were not capable, so center-left in Europe were not supporting this strict implementation of rules agreed by the overwhelming number of member states in the European Union, proposed by the Commission. So I don't speak about radical right extreme positions. I speak about the proposals from the European Commission, and the socialists were not ready to support this. So what can I say? I cannot continue to follow a quite left-leaning political approach on migration, which is obviously European-wide, feeding extremism and populism. That's why the basic thing is to answer the concerns and to give proper, serious, center-based answers.
Okay, you know what? I can see. I just dropped a link to this clip, right, where they're discussing in Munich these different political issues, right? So folks can see the whole it's like a half an hour, 40 minutes, right? But check this out. I can see in the chat there's this conversation about healthcare. Let me ask you all, how much of the federal budget in the United States of America goes towards healthcare? Let me see who knows that, because I can see there's a lot of opinions. So I'm just curious about what percentage of the U.S. federal budget, that is the money they collect from all taxpayers, how much of that actually goes to healthcare in the United States, like Medicare programs, these kind of things. I'm just curious. You know, I want to see everybody respond here. Just because I want to see how balanced the opinions are, you know. I'm reading some of them, so I'm just curious now. This is this is my lead up question, because it would allow me to understand maybe more of the comments about healthcare. But what percentage of the federal budget, right, goes towards healthcare in the United States? Yeah, Natalie says about 1/3. Close. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, something like that. 1/3, right? So my thoughts are this is 1/3 that goes to healthcare. No, it's not. It's not 18%, my friend. It's 28% or a little more, right? It's 28%, right? But it could be, you could say that's 1/3 roughly, but 28%. Let's say that, right? And you could argue about it, but it's closer to 1/3. Well, that's taxes that everybody pays into. Every time everyone that has a job, that's where they're getting that from payroll taxes, right? From the working population, right? So, yeah. And people can debate what it is, but here's the real point. This is what I wanted to illustrate. Your taxes already go to healthcare, whether you receive any or not. That's how fucked up the U.S. healthcare situation is. Your taxes already go to healthcare, whether you receive it or not. The only issue left is whether you have enough money in your pocket left to pay for the copays and the deductibles. That's all to access the rest of the healthcare. And if you don't make enough to access it, you're subsidizing other people. You see what I mean? You're still paying into it. You're just not getting anything out of it. You see? And so that's the question. And then the other thing is, this is the next question. Why is the United States healthcare system so expensive? Like, why does one operation cost you 2 and 3 times more than what it costs in Europe? Why is that? Right? And I could tell you, because in Europe, like places like Denmark, they have one place administrating the healthcare. So there's one company, that's actually doing the paperwork. In the United States, there's four different administrators. Do you know how much of the money just people sitting at a desk doing paperwork take up? That's a huge part of the cost, just administrative fees. And not to mention, part of those administrative fees are going to people to drive yachts, have 5 and 10, flashy homes and stuff like this too. I mean, so there's a lot. We all know healthcare cost. Everybody knows everything costs. Everyone knows that stuff costs. But does everyone know why it costs so much while getting so little of it? That's the question in the United States of America. Why does it cost more than anywhere else in the Western world, and so few of the percentage of the population are accessing it? That's the problem. I think if people center in on that, you can come out on top no matter what else happens. But if you avoid those two factors right there, I think you're not going to get much of a difference, So, but that's how I look at it, and I hope more Americans. I see legacy media is not too good at talking about it, by the way. Legacy media doesn't break down the difference between the healthcare system in Europe or the healthcare or in the Western world versus the United States. I find that really strange, but maybe they're corporations. Corporations get tax breaks. Corporations, can be owned. They can be subsidiaries of each other. Maybe they don't want CNN. Maybe they don't want Fox News. Maybe they don't want these media outlets really breaking the shit down to people. Maybe that's part of it. But in any case, let me see. Marco Rubio also was there. Let me hear what his crazy ass comments were about, if we can get any.
Motto for this conference: under destruction. And it probably means that the international order based on rights and rules is currently being destroyed. But I'm afraid we have to put it in even harsher terms. This order, as flawed as it has been even in its heyday, no longer exists.
Joining us right now is Democratic Senator Jeanne Shaheen, who's in Munich as well. She's the top Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Thanks for coming in, Senator. What are you hearing while on the ground from European leaders?
Trump is not there, yo. That's crazy, right?
And what is the message you're bringing?
I don't think J.D. Vance is there either.
Bringing to them?
Well, we have a very large bipartisan delegation from the United States Congress, mostly senators, but we have a number of House members as well. And we are here to reaffirm the importance of the transatlantic alliance, the importance of our European partners, and the importance of NATO. And Chancellor Merz focused on the importance of NATO, not just to European security, but also to American security. And that's a message that all of us understand very clearly.
From what you're hearing, that's the message you're bringing, but what are you hearing from...
Yo, look at this. Neither J.D. Vance or President Trump attended the Munich Security Conference, MSC, that's what it's called, yesterday, February 13th. While Vance made headlines with a controversial speech at the conference last year, he opted to skip it this year. Instead, the U.S. government is represented by the delegation by the Secretary Marco Rubio, right? So they skipped it, and I can understand why, because if you remember that speech J.D. Vance gave, he had some nerve. His speech is full of nerve, like lecturing Europeans on culture. I'm just going to say, as an American citizen, I live in Europe. Yo, how you take care of your people, how you treat your people is part of your culture. America cannot lecture Europe on culture. We can't. We have some strong points in terms of culture. Shit, hell yeah. We're multicultural. That's a strong point. We pull in a lot of things that make our society in the U.S. and America, across America, beautiful, colorful, sound wonderful, and also a lot of invention and things like this that we merge together from a lot of people with a lot of different backgrounds. That's what's made us strong in a lot of areas, science, and engineering and things like that for a long period of time. But the thing about healthcare and education and housing, fair housing, man, you can't lecture Europeans on that. You can't lecture Europeans on that. Europe has the same issues that everybody has when they're talking about integration, when they're talking about asylum, when they're talking about immigration. These aren't special issues, although some countries in Europe could argue that they have more of these type of issues and there needs to be more focus put in some countries on it, right? However, how you do it, if you listen to the U.S., we're handling our immigration problems right now under Trump. If you listen to Trump, if you listen to Marco Rubio, if you listen to J.D. Vance, if you listen to Stephen Miller, we're doing exactly what was supposed to be done a long time ago, right? But you still don't have health care. You still don't have equal access to education. You still don't have enough fair housing. The housing market is about to hit a point in the U.S. just because there's too many owners, too many big owners of vast real estate companies and not enough, affordable housing for people. You see what I mean? So there's something there that we're willing to treat our people in the U.S. like shit. Like we're willing to ignore their cries. That's not happening. The average European is not proud to, the average Frenchman is not proud to listen to another French person cry. They're just not. The average Dane is not happy to listen to see another Dane in hardship. They're not proud of that shit. In the U.S., and forgive me if I'm not maybe using the right words, but in the U.S., we have a pride for it. Like there's a pride. There's an elitist type of pride there, like where we feel like, I got my house. How come you don't have yours? Like very ignorant way to look at things, without being engaged really in the community and the overall society. I think it's problematic at this point, and we gotta call it what it is before we do something about it. It's arrogance, it's a bad type of arrogance,
Allies, are they nervous? Are they scared? Do they trust the United States will be there if they need it?
Well, clearly, the president's rhetoric around Greenland and Denmark has had an impact. And again, one of the reasons we're here with this bipartisan delegation is to reassure our allies that there is tremendous support in Congress. We are the Article 1 branch of the Constitution, And I hope that we're going to hear a positive message from Secretary Rubio when he speaks.
Earlier this week, a pre-conference report says that the world has entered an era of, quote, wrecking ball politics, and labels President Trump a demolition man of world order. Meanwhile, this morning, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said this.
Even the United States will not be powerful enough to go it alone.
Oh, yes. And that is something else we have to start. I mean, I'm not even sure if these clowns up there really mean what they say, J.D. Vance and Trump. A lot of times they don't mean what they say. It's just a distraction so they can rip off the American people and get some money in their pocket. They know damn well they're going to be crawling back to trying to get all these people they separated. In a real conflict, they will be out there begging. And you've seen that plenty of times with Trump reverse course totally fast. Trump knows, I mean, he may not want to talk about it because he's all bravado, but I mean, I'm glad to hear a European say this. I'm glad to hear that. And Americans need to hear this.
Report says that the world has entered an era of, quote, wrecking ball politics, and labels President Trump a demolition man of world order. Meanwhile, this morning, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said this.
Even the United States will not be powerful enough to go it alone.
And only an idiot would even want to go in it alone when you can go into matters collectively. That's where the strength, it doesn't matter how strong you are individually, you're stronger collectively. It's just, what's up, Euro Scott?
Dear friends, being a part of NATO is not only Europe's competitive advantage, it's also the United States' competitive advantage.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So let's repair and revive transatlantic trust.
Yeah, and let's get Trump the hell out of office. I mean, that's code word for get Trump the fuck out of office, because repair it, that means you got to get the people out that are ripping it apart. They got to get out.
Together.
With us now is CNN political and national security analyst David Sanger. He's a White House and national security correspondent for the New York Times. Good to see you, David. So you just heard the German chancellor there say the U.S. is not powerful enough to go it alone. What is your reaction to that? And just expand on how important these relations are to U.S. national security.
Well, we were waiting to hear from Chancellor Merz, in part because we wanted to see whether he was going to continue the line that you heard from Canada's Prime Minister at the Davos meeting just a few weeks ago. And you'll remember that was known for a discussion of the rupture.
I mean, this is what he said to Mark Rubio's face, I'm pretty sure.
With the United States. And while you just heard Chancellor Merz make the case that it was time to repair the relationship, most of his speech was about the importance.
Damn, look at how short Mark Rubio is. God damn, what is this, man? What is this? Damn, I didn't realize that, man. This is... Hold on. I'm sorry. I just gotta pull something up real quick. How tall is Mark Rubio and the German chancellor? I have to see this for myself, because if the German chancellor is not above 6 feet, Mark Rubio is goddamn short, man. Excuse me for being a height hater today. I'm sorry about that. Look, it says Mark Rubio's reported height is 5'9". So but it doesn't look, but other people say it's closer to 5'8". Look, they always do this. These Trumpian ass motherfuckers, they're always doing this. Man. Look, what's going on here? Hold on. I'm sorry. I got to make sure I get this right. I know this doesn't have much to do with the politics. Zelensky's not the tallest guy on earth. I get it. But when you talk a bunch of bullshit, you know what I mean? These things matter. Okay, now look. This is what it is. Friedrich Merz is 6'6". So Mark Rubio looks very, very short next to him. That's what's going on here. Okay, so Mark Rubio's not that short. He's shorter than me, but he's not that short in reality. He's average. 5'9" is average, I think. Isn't that average for males in the U.S.? 5'8" is maybe average. Okay, so let's go on. Sorry about that.
It's for the Europeans not to be dependent on the U.S., and that really has been a theme through the year that he has been in office. And you're beginning to hear discussions here that you never heard before, whether Germany needs to be underneath the...
Mertz is a giant, man. I'm sure he plays basketball. I'm sure.
French nuclear umbrella, not under just NATO's. Because
look at this shit, man. He's huge, dude. Yo, Mark Rubio looks like a little shrimp standing next to him. This is crazy. Let me just see him walk in the room a little bit. I mean, fuck Mark Rubio, man. All the nasty things he said. He's such a duplicitous ass fucker. You know what I'm saying? A two-faced bastard and shit. I'm just going to have to enjoy this part.
Beginning to hear discussions here that you never heard before, whether Germany needed to be underneath the...
He comes from an immigrant family, too, and shit, and he's just like... just hugging up to Trump or, hating immigrants. It's like, man, what's wrong with him, man?
French nuclear
Look at
umbrella,
this.
not
Boom.
Just NATO's, because you might not be able to rely on the U.S. Whether or not there needs to be a big enough military force in Europe that it could deal with Russia without the U.S. being there, at least for conventional forces. These are the kinds of conversations that were pretty unthinkable. Even during Trump.
Mertz might have some Dutch genes. Yeah, you never know, man.
Trump's first term.
It's likely.
So last year, as so many of us recall, President J.
We're going to get to Mark Rubio's dumbass words, so hold on.
Vance basically turned on European allies in that blistering speech that downplayed threats from Russia and China and put the blame on them for their problems, basically. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is taking a different tone already. Listen to what he said about Russia's war in Ukraine.
Do you expect to meet with President Zelensky when you're there?
I think so. I think he's going to be there, and there's a chance to see him. I believe it's on...
Ooh, look at him. He sounds like he's begging to meet Zelensky now. I think so. Man, what the fuck are you talking about, man? You just traveled half the globe. Zelensky's going to be there. You don't already know? Like, he's on Air Force One, or maybe, I think they use Air Force One for the diplomats, too, when they're going to places like this. Look, the Secretary of State, I believe that's Air Force One. Look, so you mean to tell me they weren't in calls with Zelensky on the way there? That is very, very telling on the international stage. That makes no sense whatsoever. That I'm sorry. That's what you pay taxes for this man to be on the phone with him when he's headed over there. That's a very important thing going on there for Americans. Still, we're supplying Ukraine with a lot of weapons still, right? We're still a part of NATO. Still, we're still supposed to be informed daily about what is going on, and any opportunity that there is to meet face to face, that's already supposed to be arranged. I'm just saying that, that's my view of it in terms of this diplomatic stuff. So
schedule, I'm not 100%.
He's not 100%
Secretary
sure.
of State Marco Rubio is taking a different tone already. Listen to what he said about Russia's war in Ukraine.
Do you expect to meet with President Zelensky when you're there?
I think so. I think he's going to be there, and there's a chance to see him. I believe it's on my schedule. I'm not 100% certain, but I'm sure we will. It's terrible. It's a war. That's why we want the war to end. People are suffering. It's the coldest time of year.
He sounds like he just doesn't care. He's like, I think so. I don't know. I want to see if it's on my schedule. It should end. Like, nothing determinative about it.
It's unimaginable, the suffering. That's the problem with wars. That's why wars are bad, and that's why we've worked so hard for over a year now to try to bring this one to an end.
But you could always make money off a war too, right? If you're making money off a war, then war's not bad, right? Isn't that right, Mark Rubio? Isn't that correct? You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's always two different sides of that coin. Wars are always bad, yeah. But then there's that side where people are making money off of it, right? So, yeah. It's weird.
So how does this change in tone resonate with the allies of America right now there at the security conference?
Well, Secretary Rubio is going to be talking on Saturday morning, and I think many of
he's so convincing.
people who are in the hall for Vice President Vance's speech are going to want to go hear him. They'll be particularly listening for whether or not he uses the phrase from the national security strategy, which said that Europe was heading toward civilizational erasure. In other words, it was losing its European nature.
How do you lose your European nature when every European has childcare? Every European has universal health care. It can see a doctor when they get sick. It's us. We're the U.S. We're the ones killing fucking Americans. It's like, look. When a dude and a lady want to pop out a baby in Europe, they could pop out a baby any day of the week and not be overly in a state of emergency. You see what I mean? That's what. So how do you die when you basically have all your options covered? It's in the U.S. I mean, they're preserving the language, everything. And this dude has got the nerve. He's speaking English in America. First of all, Marco Rubio. I mean, what was that all about? It's just any European language is good in that case. So he's happy with speaking English and shit. In America, right? He's talking about civilization coming to an end. The U.S. is only 250 years old, man. Do you understand how old these European kingdoms are? And he's lecturing them on survival and shit. I mean, he's full of shit. He's full of shit. Like, straight up, man. Straight up. That is crazy.
But I think he will be a little bit more conciliatory. What's been striking here, though, is hearing the Europeans and the Ukrainians say, we want peace, but not at any cost. And
the Ukrainians rejected Trump and Rubio's offer the last time around. And so, yeah.
And a lot of skepticism that you will see President Zelensky ultimately be willing to give up land or settle for what may be halfway security measures. And we simply don't know enough detail yet about the negotiation and what the Russians will accept to know whether he'll have to make that choice.
Does it feel like there is actual progress being made on the war in Ukraine, or has it all just been a lot of motion and activity?
Let me flip over here. Let's see a little more. Sorry about that. I just want to get to the end of this one real quick, this clip, and see what the president of Canada said about this. Here we go.
And so forth. Right now, only the Europeans are really supplying arms, and that Putin is dragging President Trump along. You hear a very different account from the Trump administration, which says, look, we're making progress that the Biden administration never did, because they never did actually get talks going.
So I want to turn to something
else. You know, a lot of this Ukraine stuff, how our administration handles it, it definitely has something to do with the Epstein files. You see this same flip-flop, you know, whenever there's a dynamic of Israel. I'm not trying to put Israel on the spot, but who cares, right? I mean, they're a sovereign country. They're engaged in, you know, conflict right now, right? Using American weapons, and you know, they're on the international stage, right? But whenever it comes to this Epstein file shit, it seems like we're having difficulty, like we're flip-flopping. Biden didn't seem to have the exact same approach with Israel. He was a little more firmer, right? Trump relaxes on Israel. You know, you see Ukraine, Biden was more firmer. He wasn't all the way, but he was more firmer because obviously, I mean, some of this is supposed to go through Congress, right? I mean, how much of this is supposed to be about the people in a democracy and what you want to support, right? And your voice onto matters, right? So everything can't just be executive order, executive order, executive order. And on top of it, some of it, you know, needs to be, you know, you need to have real conversations in the Congress and in the Senate. But in any case, and find out what the sentiment of the American public is. But in any case, we were supplying them with more weapons. We were more coordinated. We were supplying them with intelligence. We were supplying them with other things that matter on the battlefield too. But now that Trump's in office, we pull back. You know, so it's the same. To me, it sounds like, yeah, you know, it sounds to me like they got Trump's number, you know, Epstein files, other people in the world. To me, it sounds like other people in the world have the Epstein files and they can pull Trump's buttons anytime they want. And Trump is very hesitant and dodging, trying to not make it look so obvious. But to me, it's just totally obvious at this point. Yeah.
Else, the Canadian Prime Minister, and what he said last month in Davos. Let's listen.
It seems that every day we're reminded that we live in an era of great power rivalry.
Okay, so that's what it was. That was at Davos. So here, let me go on
The
now.
Munich Security Conference gets underway today with a rift between the United States and Europe set to take centre stage following Donald Trump's threats to acquire Greenland. The US is represented by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who arrived in Munich a short while ago. Transatlantic ties were strained at last year's conference when Vice President J.D. Vance accused...
Okay, so they got the same old garbage-ass words. Let's see here. Let's hear from France. Yeah, Marco Rubio didn't say much, I take it. And I don't think it's much of any consequence because the U.S. is not engaging really in any real manner Europe outside of tariffs, Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. Trump doesn't want to engage European nations. He doesn't want to engage them on defense. He doesn't want to, he seems like he's going for that Trumpian version of America and stay out of Europe and stay out of, Asia, this kind of thing. So let me see here. Let me get to the, here we go. Hold on. Let me see here. Boom.
Use our red tape and become a believe that the Americans will be happy without the Europeans in the long run. Sometimes you have a crisis in your relationship and you think maybe I'll move out and I'll start over. But often after some time you come back because you miss what you had. So maybe we can strike a deal. Maybe we can become a little better, you can become a little friendlier. We will accept your leadership, but maybe you pay us some more respect, a little more appreciation, and maybe you can recognize our interests as what they are, which is understandable. I grew up next to a hospital of the U.S. forces, and
wow, is this the Prime Minister of Dutchland? Of the Netherlands? Who is this right here speaking? Wow, this is deep.
always felt very, very close to the Americans.
He's speaking German now, right? Or is he speaking Dutch? Sounds like German to me.
And of course, I want to keep...
But I can never figure out between Dutch and German because they're similar, and then it's like Dutch is almost like English and German mixed together. It's not Dutch, right? Okay, no, yeah. So then it's German. Okay.
Saying that I love Bavarian beer. That's
it's German.
Favorite,
okay.
But
okay.
if in doubt, I prefer whiskey to vodka. A warm welcome to the Munich Security Conference.
Meine Damen und Herren, da auch der nächste Redner seine Präsentation in deutscher Sprache halten wird, bleibe ich jetzt auch für diese 30 Sekunden in Deutsch. Ich freue mich sehr als Organisator dieser Münchner Sicherheitskonferenz, dass Bundeskanzler Friedrich Merz entschieden hat, nicht wie seine Vorgänger
And he decided to not speak at the second conference day like his predecessors, but rather he will open this conference this afternoon, right now. And I believe that this will set the tone for the next couple of days or 3 days. In light of the difficult questions that we have to tackle in this room, questions for us, the Europeans, the transatlantic and the global community. So I don't want to keep you waiting. It is a pleasure to have you here, Chancellor, opening the Munich Security Conference. You have the floor.
Sehr geehrter lieber Wolfgang Ischinger, lieber
Markus
Söder, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen aus den Regierungen, aus den Parlamenten,
Excellencies,
sehr verehrte liebe Gäste, meine Damen und Herren.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Ich komme mit einigen Unterbrechungen
With only a few interruptions,
jetzt seit mehr als 30
I've attended the Munich
nach München
Security conference for more than 30 years.
Die Münchner Sicherheitskonferenz
The Munich Security Conference has always been a seismograph
der politischen
for
Lage.
the political situation. In the early years,
Ein Seismograph
a seismograph
für die Beziehungen
for
zwischen Amerika
the relations between the United States and Europe.
Seit vielen Jahren ein
For many
Seismograph
years, it's been a
für die gesamte
seismograph
politische
for the political
Welt.
state of the entire world.
Ich bin in früheren Jahren vor allem
In the
hierher
early
gekommen,
years, I came here mainly to foster
Freunden
the
zu
relations
pflegen,
with our American
aber auch
friends, but
neue
also
Akteure der
to
Außenpolitik
meet
und der
new
Sicherheitspolitik aus
actors
vielen Ländern der
in
Welt.
foreign and security policy from many parts of the world.
I have to say that sadly enough Americans do not pay attention to what, to these kind of conferences. And there's something, our politicians and our news networks, right? Our legacy media, the big brand media, they don't encourage it, sadly enough. So a lot of us are totally locked out in our minds to what's going on. I mean, we wouldn't have any clue of what Europeans are thinking or saying if the legacy media doesn't say it, and they rarely say it. You see what I mean? Like, so I'm an American that lives in Europe, so I'm more engaged. And so I do understand what the thinking is in Europe and what the issues are, because I live here, for a period of time, So, but we lose out as Americans when we don't pay attention, because then we don't have anything to balance our thoughts with. We don't have anything to compare our existence with. We think we're doing very, very well, and we're not, because we have nothing to compare it to, and it's the oddest goddamn thing. But it's our corporate media, man. Our corporate media is full of shit in the United States, man. It is anti-democracy. I have to say that, it keeps people dumb. It keeps Americans dumb. I hate to say that, but Americans got to stand up for their own. I mean, I can only stand up for myself, and I speak for myself because I just want people to meet me for who I am, and also understand every American isn't blind to this kind of stuff. But more Americans better take note. Take note, man.
For several years,
auch hier im Saal,
also here in this room,
eine Stimmung,
we've had an atmosphere marked
Oh, really?
by
Okay, you had that reaction in the EU. Okay, working in the UN, I'm sorry, in New York. I mean, that's sad, man. That is really sad. That's really, really sad. And but we pay for it though. We pay for it, Euroscott, because you can't fool people that are doing their analysis based on data and facts. You know what I mean? Your arrogance doesn't remove data and facts, and I think for a while the U.S. politicians and not politicians, but Americans and the politicians have led on the side of we're powerful, therefore we must be right, and that's not always the case. You need a balance, and that's something that we have to learn from, and this might be the opportunity for us to learn. It should be a big opportunity for Americans to learn something about what we're not doing right. You see what I mean? And I would say that. But I'm sorry you had that experience. Typically you got to deal with Americans that have lived abroad to expect them to really have any understanding, to be able to meet you halfway. You got to deal with us that live abroad. You know what I mean? I hate to say that because a lot of us don't know a damn thing about it more than our city we live in, man. I hate to say it, or the part of the country we live in, maybe, and I don't want it to sound like I'm talking down about Americans, but I mean, generally speaking, even myself, liberals tend to be more worldly, like myself. Liberals, if you look at this, matter of fact, I wanted to talk about I don't know how long I'm going to last, because I got another stream later today where we're talking about this American Act thing that Congress wants to push through that's going to suppress votes. But look, it's going to they're talking already about it, saying it's going to backfire because Trump wants everyone to have a passport or something like this when they vote. But what these Republicans, these poor and middle class Republicans, don't understand is that liberals have more valid identification. We tend to have, the SAFE Act. We tend to have more passports. It's liberals that have more passports in the country, man. And seriously, and even just valid ID. You know what I'm saying? It's like, come on. A lot of the Republican voters don't understand how this stuff works out on the ground. It sounds good. All righty. They're going to see how it's going to act, how it's going to happen, and it is when you have Europe to think about, right? And we lecture all the time. Why are we lecturing Europe when we're now telling each other that we don't even know how to do an election? We don't even know how to do an ID that's legit. This is what the American president is saying now. So how are you lecturing Europe when you don't even know how to count votes? You don't even know how to, according to Trump, you don't even know how to make legitimate IDs available for everyone. How is that possible? You see the oxymoronic aspects of this, so man, we got some fucked up corruption going on in our country. And I would say if Europe could learn anything from what's going on in the United States, this is what corruption does. When you allow too much corruption into your political realm, into your government, this is what it looks like in reality. This is what it looks like. How do you have a honey trap operation, foreign honey trap operation running in your country for 25, 30 fucking years? How? Because of the corruption. That's how. That's crazy. It's crazy.
Tensions and conflicts in the world.
Yeah, everybody have ID. I got my damn. What the fuck? And do you it's crazy. They act like voting is hard. They act like identifying people is hard. I got my Danish ID on me, the national ID. I have my American passport on me. You know what I'm saying? It's like, but when it's time to vote, my voting slip gets sent to my home. It's only one sent out to me. So what are they, what's the problem? You know what I mean? I walk 2 blocks away and go vote from where I live. The voting people take over the school and they call everybody out that day for a vote. And you go there and in nighttime and you vote. You see what I mean? After work or whatever, or before work, depending on your work. I mean, but we're claiming in our country, the president is claiming that we don't have that same ability. It's just crazy, man. I don't get it. They're also claiming we don't have the ability to provide everybody with health care, except we got way more money than anybody else to provide it. We got dollars just flowing out of our pockets, spilling over like we have money to waste. Apparently we do. Same thing with the educational system. It's a lot of waste, a lot of corruption in all of it. And yet we're lecturing Europe. I mean, and I'm not saying this because I'm not a proud American. I'm just saying it because it's the facts. It's the facts, and American people need to know it. They need to understand when these politicians are talking bullshit, and they need to understand what role the legacy media plays in not informing people. It's sad.
At the latest, with the beginning of the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine 4 years ago, we have entered a new phase of open conflicts and wars that make us hold our breath and that change our world more comprehensively than we in this room would have thought possible.
Oh, you said the U.S. passport paper is printed in Germany. It could be. Really, that's why a lot of the passports look alike. When you break it down, they might have different colors and things like that. But if you look past the color, you will see it. And it's also a lot of the technology and IDs and things like this. But of course, this new election shit is just another thing for Trump and the Republicans. They're scared they're going to get voted out of power, so they want to change the election rules. That's how it is. That's what it's all about. And they're hoping that less people vote. But everything that they do, Republican voters need to understand that it's not working out the way this administration says it is. I mean, look, Texas is electing Democrats now. A lot of red states are electing Democrats now because of how this administration is acting. So, it's it's just a shame we have to waste this time on these things. But the most important thing to me is that we learn from these lessons. We learn so that we don't repeat them after this, because we can't afford it. We shouldn't want to repeat this kind of waste. You know, the deficit is higher than it's ever been. Trump raised the U.S. deficit more than any president in the history of the country. Like, he's totally abused power, and yet there's still a third of the population, or voting population, or population, one or the other, that is okay with this. There's still a majority of the Congress and the Senate that's okay with this type of shit that's going on. I mean, Europe is smart because they're not lecturing Americans. I think that's a smart thing. Don't lecture them, but Americans should understand that you might want Europe lecturing you, because Europe can help you. Because if somebody's not lecturing you, you're going to fucking fall, like, hard, like, straight up. Like, this is a danger moment for the U.S. And it's just really sad. But I saw your comment also, Raymond Cheapers. Germans usually don't fuck around with dumb jokes. Yeah, I hear you. I mean, listen, man, don't feel bad. This is everybody's opportunity to talk about how stupid Americans are. And I'm saying this straight up. Take your opportunity. Like, don't be shy about it. Where there's stupidity, where there's stupidness, just go ahead and speak about it. Because I'm an American, and I'm telling you, don't feel bad about it. Do that, because this can never happen again. You see what I'm saying? Like, I don't even want this shit as an American to happen again. Nobody should want this shit to happen again. But until the United States Congress and Senate and Supreme Court cleans up this corruption, my advice is don't ever trust. You can never trust another American administration again until the institutions are willing to show that they are going to crack down on this level of corruption, because it is totally dangerous. It's not, you can do nothing good can come out of this level of corruption. Elon Musk wants to own the goddamn U.S. military, basically. Like, really, what we're doing, this level of corruption is a danger to societies around the world, And so they may have even pushed Europe closer to China, closer to Africa, closer to South America, closer to everyone else. Trump is pushing, because of this corruption, he's pushing everyone else together. And I don't blame you, shit, man. People are trying to survive. They got to survive with what they got. And if they don't have a U.S. that's working, that's willing to be adults, that's willing to be responsible, fuck it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying that as an American citizen. That's my view on it. I hope my country gets its shit together. But societies only last 1,000 years because they work on it. You see what I mean? The United States there's no country guaranteed to make it past the 250th year. You see what I mean? We're the youngest democracy on earth, pretty much, in the Western world. So we are one of the youngest, you know what I'm saying? I don't know Canada and, but having said that, there's no guarantee that any society lives on if it doesn't look itself in the mirror. You see what I mean? So, but on that note, let me see something here before I'm out. Here we go. Let me close out on this, some fun stuff on the, on the goddamn Epstein. Hold on. There's a government shutdown. Let me do that. And then the Epstein thing real quick. There's a government shutdown right now. And, the Republicans walked away from DC, and there's still a shutdown, but here's a little breakdown on it.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Let me see here. This is Eugene, right, from MS, right, on the giving his breakdown of this shutdown real quick. So let's see here.
People of their due process. Do you think it was smart to get this extension 2 weeks? And what do you think?
I think a 2-week extension wasn't long enough. Everybody who was involved and every source I talked to, whether it was a member of Congress or someone who works for them and has to do the actual, most of the meetings, they were like 2 weeks isn't enough. And so
Right.
it's very confusing why they chose 2 weeks, because first of all, something that's really important for people to remember, ICE already has plenty money.
So this is the shutdown about ICE, right? Primarily Homeland Security and ICE. They already have plenty of money, right? So this is not affecting other aspects of the economy, but it's basically about ICE.
Money that they got from the
BBB.
Big Beautiful Bill is going to be pumping, and I think the estimates say 6 years is how long they'll be funded instead. And so that's something for people to know. So this is not about ICE. This is about basically everything else under DHS. This is about, TSA, for example.
The good stuff. The
good
stuff you actually need them to do.
Right. So yeah. There you have it. There you have it.
Stuff we all need them to do.
So it's not really about ICE. It's about all the other things under Homeland Security. TSA, that's customs, at the airports, how well it functions, these people being paid, this kind of.
So really, one, from the very beginning, like, it was kind of a known secret that they should have done more than 2 weeks. They can't do anything.
Right.
I think Democrats were still somehow hopeful that Republicans would get on board with some of these common sense fixes to ICE, right? Because that's a part of the conversation. And, Katie Britt, who's doing a lot of the negotiations on the Senate side, basically said most of these things are a non-starter, right? Like no masks, identifying information, making sure they have body cameras, which they want to put in the law, but that Secretary Noem already said in Minnesota, and they're going to start sending those out to all ICE agents across the country. But the negotiations are continuing to stall. So come this weekend, I assume, unless something crazy happens, we will have a shutdown of DHS.
And also everybody's gone already for the so there's nobody there to do the negotiating.
There's no one to talk to. No.
Okay, so that's the situation in the U.S. with that shutdown. Now let's see what Hakeem said about that.
Mike Johnson has once again sent House Republicans home. This is the same approach, failed approach, that Speaker Johnson and Republicans took during the 43-day Trump Republican shutdown in the fall. Strange to me that they would decide to take a similar approach. It didn't work out for them. It didn't work for the American people. And
So a lot of people were saying, just shut it down from the beginning. I was one that said, you know what? Shut this shit down until Trump leaves office. Just shut it all down. Instead, what they did some weeks ago was they passed the budget. They went ahead and passed it, the CRT, this temporary budget, right? And now the only thing that's left to negotiate over was this Homeland Security thing, right? But for me, I'm just like, no, just shut down everything until Trump is out of power. Like, why are we still living life based on a lunatic's whim? Why? Why is that? And so in my view, I'm not really happy with any of the Democrats. I believe in the Senate made a deal, right? And this was the same type of issue that the Republicans passed it. They did it without Democrats. Then they got to the Senate and some Democrats folded. I believe that's what happened, right? And again, I just don't understand it. We're back at the same point again where shit is getting funded, but we're still talking about ICE wearing masks. We're still talking about ICE not having to wear body cams. We're still talking about things like, these kind of issues that are very basic. Fourth Amendment, no search, illegal search and seizure without a warrant. These are parts of the Constitution. How can you violate them? How can a government agency violate them? But yet they're still getting funded. They're still getting funded. So, so that was, that's what Hakeem is saying about it, But let me see here. There's one more issue here. There's plenty of issues, but there's one thing I wanted to end on this issue with Joe Rogan. This is so ridiculous, man. Joe Rogan is finally figuring out that Trump is down with Epstein, and he can't understand why he supported him so long, year after year, in his run for office.
But that's blue pill. They took the blue pill.
Is there such thing as a black pill?
Yes.
This is what they're talking about on Joe Rogan.
Some pedophiles in positions of high power.
Yeah.
And then there's also probably a real good chance that we'll pull through this and we'll be better than we've ever been before. That's possible. There's a lot of exciting possibility about the future of human beings. And I think the good thing and the bad thing about the internet is the free distribution of information. There's a good thing about it that I try to focus on is that more people have an understanding of how things are really working than ever before.
Yeah.
Like this Epstein file thing, right? That was a big eye-opener for a lot of people. When you see how many people after 2008, after he was arrested, after he went to jail, were actively taking money from him. MIT took money from him and tried to hide it and said to make sure that any donations from Jeffrey are listed as anonymous. So you find out like people are like, they referred to him as Voldemort, like you couldn't say his name.
Wow.
There was a lot of people that met with him and did business with him and traveled with him after he was arrested, after he went to jail.
Do you spend a lot of time reading them?
No, I try not to. I try to have experts come on. I try to read. You can't change it.
Yeah.
And it'll fuck with your head.
Yeah, it's
like
toxic.
You will really get.
It'll stick with and I know I've tried not to.
Yeah.
I haven't read any of them. I do see things on the news.
Yeah. So you see, I don't mind experts. I think experts are great, but also read the shit yourself too, man. Come on. You know, what is this? You know, but there it is. So I ask people, have we learned our lesson? You know, have we learned our lesson? I mean, it sounds to me like Joe Rogan is just going to repeat the same shit over and over and over. He's waiting, you know, slowly to figure out what's happening, you know, and to take a decisive side with it, you know. It's interesting to see people come to different epiphany points, you know. But the main thing I come to is that, listen, you know, Kamala Harris wasn't in it. They be talking about it. You know, Biden wasn't in the Epstein files. They be talking about it. And who did this guy Joe Rogan cap for? He didn't cap for Kamala Harris. He saw her as a problem. She wanted affordable housing. She wanted health care. She wanted access to education. That's what Joe Biden wanted too. He didn't think those were good things. Instead, he led down the Epstein path. That's what he did and supported Trump. Does it sound like he's learned his lesson yet? I don't think so. And he's got a huge following, you know. So this is kind of the state of YouTubers, independent media somewhat. I mean, it's not the whole story about it, but you have these contingencies like this right wing. I call him right wing. He would call himself a centrist. Joe Rogan. Nah, for me, if you're not for education, if you're not for health care, if you're not for affordable housing, I don't even understand what you're talking about anymore. Like, I don't get that. Those are supposed to be staples of civilized societies. You know, they're not supposed to be left or right issues, you know, but, you know, here we are, you know, aren't a lot of MAGA. Yeah, a lot of them are. A lot of them are, Dennis. A lot of them are MAGA voters, you know, that listen to him. And you heard her say it themselves. Both Joe Rogan and this lady, they're talking about the Epstein files, and they're both saying they try not to read them. They rather have experts. They rather listen to experts. Okay, we're going to see how that goes. But listen, y'all, I'll be back later on today. I appreciate everybody for this morning or late night episode. I will be back in 12 hours from now. So I appreciate everybody. You guys have a good day. And we catch up later. Peace, Dennis. Peace, Dang. What's up? Raymond, good to see you here. Euroscott, I appreciate the time you guys spent. I'll catch up with you guys in a few, all right? Let's go. See ya. Impeach Trump. Impeach Trump. Impeach Trump. Fuck Trump. Fuck Trump. Fuck Trump. FDT. 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 See ya. Yeah, peace.
Crime babies looking for food, starvation, the recipe, people subdued. When the people you trust got it in for you. Deceit is the word of the day in every clue. Don't let it go, it's from the days of old. Time is up, but some still do not know. Can I make up my mind? Is it worth the dime? Do I have to take a minute just to make it mine? Life's never fair, but don't listen to the TV. Go out and take a listen to the streets with the people in the slums and the homeless bums with degrees and degrees sitting under a tree. It's not easy in the world for the poor man, the one that brought you to reality. See, they don't want you to know about the black sheep. Even 7 roads to the 12 families all around the globe with an ancient code. Is it really asking a lot to say a death old? Cause we sitting on the earth looking back at extinct, and I'm standing on some ground that's about to sink. I ain't scared for a minute, I ain't about to blink, but I documented for the world what I see and think. Feel we on the call and I feel we on the break. All Congress gonna do is waste paper and ink. Vote or die, you voted and you'll die. You can have it both ways, can't say it's a lie. You can march all you want, but they playing you wrong. They only understand war, it's the same old song. They want war, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. All they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. Like a lotus coming out of the mud with colors, I create envy in those with power but jealous. I unify the poor with my song, the hell with the others. Descended the way they treat indigenous brothers, cause I understand we link forever. They try to hate us even though that we keep it together. I'm not talking about controlling the air or the weather, I'm talking about maintaining the truth, the high endeavor. A rebel drops bombs in the midst of trouble. The free world counterattack and now there's double, but nature gets the shit in a way that's subtle. If you stop the machines for a minute you might hear, but they won't cause the TVs whisper in the ear. And capitalism has eyes that don't dare, and they cloud up and get crazy and won't stare. And like an ad, it's hard to get an ass to listen. Living like this is like living in prison. It's hard to keep hope when you're living in prison. The spiritual thoughts, so yes, the mental prison. The outside, yes, it's got to get through. Something's gotta die, so something here can live. Your life is nothing if you got nothing to give. Keeping the spiritual, yes, disguised as religion. Controlling your mind, the mental prison. They want war, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. All they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. MC when he bustin', but I just back away real cool, no fussin'. I'd rather go kicking in the streets with the bums and use the knowledge to collect what? Some funds. Open a non-profit and build a damn school. And this is the story of how a great king rules. There's many that claim to know the local demographic, but don't have the nerve to tell you the truth. It's tragic, but I do, so sit back and let me spit this shit to you. You feel better when I spit this shit to you. Despite the system trying to clamp down on the people will learn how to stand up to evil. Not evil that's across the globe, that's too far, but evil lies in their own backyard. And fighting, it's not an option, they can't win. The government, it's not supposed to represent sin, but then again they do, and that's a problem. So let's go down and figure out how to solve them. It's not fun being a rapper that can't speak, but we do, yes, and plus we make fat beats. Yo, we smoke weed, break up trees. Listen, bringing fat beats, that is our mission. You wanted to see us, homeboy, shut up and listen. Thelonious and Big Bennett, brother, check the vision. Mentalities, several different realities. Enter the Star Trek room when you hit the boom. I be the Walkman with the super bass. Automatic stop, yes, stereo cassette player. With the delayer, freaky lyrical sprayer. Extraterrestrial rhyme sayer. I be the poetical VIC/master of the ceremony. Testimony, won't you come step with me? I'm on a historical journey, kinda like Sigourney. Implore me to represent the attorney that represents my niggas, go figure. Here's the card, they call me Uncle Vigor. Niggas love your blunts, down your liquors. I read the parallel to the fiction. You're fixated on this brother's nature. Relaxed behavior, I might save you. Change, flip it, rearrange. The whole concept, yo, is good for all.